Hello, my name is Steve Klipowitz and I'm the art director of IDV and SpeedTree. I'm also the lead developer of SpeedTree for Houdini, which is a set of tools that are designed to help you get SpeedTree FBX files into Houdini by side effect software. Now before we really get started, I would like to show you what happens when you import a SpeedTree FBX file directly into Houdini without using the tools. Here are the results of importing a SpeedTree FBX with the standard FBX importer that ships with Houdini. You can see right off the bat that there are some problems with the transparency levels in the scene view. The FBX surface shader, which is the standard type of shader applied to an FBX object, isn't very flexible, and as you can see right here, it actually doesn't render right with the SpeedTree FBX model. Here we have a simple scene with just a few lights in it already. The first thing I'm going to do is install the digital asset library for SpeedTree FBX, which has 3 components. I've already created a shelf item out of the SpeedTree FBX object type, which will let me place it anywhere in the scene. Right away you can tell things are looking better. The tree looks right in the scene view already. In the render view, you can see that the tree looks correct. The materials all have the right properties, the way they were set up in the SpeedTree modeler. Using SpeedTree FBX, you can enable a spike display proxy to be shown in scene view instead of the fully rendered tree. This lets you navigate the scene easier while maintaining the fully rendered tree in the render view. The display proxy is set to the height of the tree, so if you have multiple trees in the scene, it's easy to tell which one is which. We also supply the ability to assign a color to the proxy to make it even easier to tell apart from other trees. In this next section, I'm going to show you some of the features of the SpeedTree material, which is a custom-made shader for use with SpeedTree FBX objects. SpeedTree FBX automatically makes SpeedTree materials for every type of surface in the FBX file. You can see them here in the material palette. We're going to focus on the bark texture for right now. Just like in the SpeedTree modeler, we provide a light scaler for the basic diffuse component of the shader. A major component of the SpeedTree material is support for tangent space normal maps. You can scale the intensity of the normal map, or invert the green channel since there are different ways that people encode normal maps. Let's now focus on the frond material. As you know, a realistic leaf shader allows for light to pass through a material and create a translucent effect on the other side. We provide 2 basic mechanisms for creating this effect. By checking Enable Translucency, the same lighting model that's employed in the SpeedTree modeler is used in Houdini for creating translucency effects. It comes with some basic options for changing the color and scaling the effect to make it brighter or more dim. By default, the effect is faded out as you look down the same direction that the light is facing. I'm going to assign an unnatural color to the light transmission just so you can see the effects a little bit better. This lighting model works for most cases, but sometimes you might want to use subsurface scattering options that are built into Houdini. Remember to create a point cloud file from the provided button on the interface, since it's required for subsurface scattering to appear in your renders. Just for contrast, I'll assign an orange color to the subsurface scattering. I wanted to point out that that point cloud file is actually associated with a node in the SpeedTree FBX network. I'm going to dive in here and just show you where that node is, just so you know, since it's automatically created when you import a SpeedTree FBX file. In here we have one node for each surface type that appears in the SpeedTree FBX file. Once subsurface scattering has been set up, you can see that it's easy to switch between the two translucency models. The next feature I want to show is called view dependency. By default, the translucency gets faded away as you look towards the front lit side of the model. Decreasing the view dependency will make light transmission more visible from any viewing angle. View dependency affects both standard transmission and subsurface scattering. And at this point, I'm just going to set the transmission color back to something reasonable. There's one more feature of the SpeedTree material that I'd like to show, and that is the use of detail textures. I'm going to set the ambient color to white to make this easier to see. A detail layer is like a decal. First you set it up in the SpeedTree modeler, and then it will show up on your materials in Houdini. This model has an imprint of frond clippings on the bark texture. The final section of this walkthrough will cover SpeedTree Forest. SpeedTree Forest lets you get world building data out of the SpeedTree modeler and into Houdini. I have a simple scene set up. It has a terrain and two lights. When I jump over to the SpeedTree modeler, you can see that I already have a simple scene set up. I'm just going to export this data as a SWA file, which stands for SpeedTree World Building ASCII. In Houdini, I'm going to import two trees as FBX files to use with my forest. At this point, I'll add a SpeedTree Forest node. That way I can get the SWA file into Houdini. Now all I need to do is assign trees to the different entries in my forest. I'll select from the list the two trees that I imported earlier. And when we check back to the source, we see that the locations all match up. I'll briefly show you some different ways that you can change the forest data, just so you have an idea of what kind of things you would do in the SpeedTree modeler that you would need to carry over to Houdini. Specifics about these different world building options that I'm using are covered in the documentation. Now that we've made some edits, I'm going to re-export this data and import it back into Houdini again. If you've already imported the SWA file one time, you can simply press the Reload Forest button. You can scale back the density of any entry in the forest with the display slider provided underneath each tree's name. The Seed Value and Randomize button change which trees get knocked out when you lower the display slider. Another performance option is to toggle display proxies for all of the trees in the forest. I wanted to make one last edit to the forest, and that is to increase the density of the grass by 5-fold. And it looks like some of the grass blades are still missing, so I need to make sure that that display slider is set to 1. And now we have enough ground cover for a close-in shot like this. The last thing I wanted to mention is that all of these tools are well documented in Houdini. If you press the little help button, you'll see what all the properties do that I've been explaining, and it'll give you different tips and warnings about using them. Thank you for listening. Please visit SpeedTree.com for more information about SpeedTree, or SideEffects.com for more info on Houdini.